Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Matt. It's been a while. Sorry about that. Also, I've made a terrible mistake with my hair. We're not going to talk about it. Anyway, so today I wanted to film the mid-year book Freakout tag. It's already halfway through the year, which is kind of crazy, but hopefully the other half passes quickly and 2020 will be over and things will be better. Because the world is a dumpster fire right now. So, just jumping straight into the questions. The first question is the best book you've read so far in 2020, and that hands down has to be The Tyrant Brew Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. It is the third book after The Traitor Brew Cormorant and The Monster Brew Cormorant. We got The Tyrant, and this book it was just so good. It combines all of my worst fears. My worst fears are immortality, sharks, and protuberances, growths, tumors, anything, I don't know, irregular and growing, like warty pumpkins. Disgusting. And in the Tyrant Brood Cormorant, we get an immortal cancer cult that passes along their immortality by embedding their souls into tumors that they breed and then pass down through generations. We also get a cancer whale, a cancer killer whale that acts a lot like a shark, so it's pretty scary. Anyway, this is probably my most anticipated book of 2020, which is kind of crazy considering all of the great things coming out in the second half of this year. But I was just so excited for it, and the book really didn't disappoint. I am, however, a little bit confused as to whether or not that was the final book, because that definitely could have been the final book with a little bit of an open ending. However, the very last chapter about the lightning kind of threw me, and I don't know if that's set up for another series set in the same world, or if there's going to be a fourth book in which we get a kind of resolution to Beru's treasonous dismantling of the Masquerade. Either way, I absolutely love the book, and I would highly recommend the series if you haven't picked it up. It's probably one of the smartest series I've ever read. Question 2 is, what is the best sequel that you've read so far this year? And that has to be Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. The first book is Foundryside. I do have a copy. The first book is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, and this takes place in a very interesting world where the magic system is called scribing. And essentially what you can do is you can write little runes that reprogram reality. So if you want to have a self-driving carriage, you program the wheels to think that they're always going downhill, and that way they'll just continue to roll forward until told otherwise. And so in this world, it's actually really interesting because everything is controlled by these massive lexicons that are full of definitions, and they're almost like these servers that are within the city of Chirvon. And each server has an area of influence, and if you're within that area, any scribing will work. And so there are also people called Hierophants who existed a very long time ago, and they had insane scribing power to do whatever they wanted. And so the world to me actually feels like it's taking place inside a simulation, and that the Hierophants of ages past were actual people who built the simulation and were able to enter it and completely manipulate it as gods. And so Shorefall is a really great sequel because we get the return of a Hierophant, the Hierophant to rule them all, and it was a really fantastic sequel, and the ending bodes poorly for book 3, so I'm excited for that to come out. A new release that I haven't read yet but want to is A Third Question, and this one I'm a little bit wary of because it's going to be so bad. I know it's going to be so bad. Oh, actually no, I have two options, and I know they're both going to be so bad. The first one is A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the kind of prequel to The Hunger Games. Everyone hates it, I know that, but I still want to read it. And then the other option that I thought of first was actually Hawk by James Patterson, which is his ill-begotten entry into the Maximum Ride world after years of finally letting it die. But no, he's revived it, and I'm sure Pierre Ford is really mad if she's reading it. Question 4 is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And there are just so many options. There are 10 Arrows of Iron. There are 10 Arrows of Iron by Sam Sykes, the sequel to Seven Blades in Black. There's The Black Song by Anthony Ryan. There's When Jackal Stormed the Walls by Bradley Beaulieu. Aswan is releasing a new Malazan book later this year. There's Rhythm of War by Brandy Sandy. Like, there are just a lot of really amazing things coming out in the second half of the year, so I can't pick just one, but those are the ones I'm most excited for. Question 5 is, what is your biggest disappointment so far this year? And that is easy. It just hands down has to be The Book of Ice, or The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. This was his sequel trilogy to the Book of the Ancestor / like the Red Sister series, and it takes place on this world called Abeth, which is completely covered in ice except for, I think, a 50-kilometer wide corridor around the equator of the planet that is free of ice. And the Red Sister series is just so absolutely fantastic. Nona is one of the best characters I've ever read. She really, really has to work for everything, which is nice and something that you don't see in a lot of fantasy. It's something that I appreciate a lot about the Poppy War, for example. And so I was expecting a lot of really good things with The Girl in the Stars, but unfortunately, I don't know, there wasn't anything necessarily wrong with it, but just comparing it to Red Sister, I didn't really like it that much. I also feel like it was a little bit confusing in terms of the sci-fi elements that were kind of thrown into what had previously been more of a fantasy story. I also didn't really feel connected to any of the characters. I wish we had more of the world. I know that this book takes place on ice and there's not really much there, but the fact that it was just in this series of ice caverns for the entire thing just was kind of boring. And I also kind of felt like I'd read something similar in Django Wexler. He has a series called Ship of Smoke and Steel. City of Stone and Silence is the second book. And that is in a video I have called If You Like This Video Game, Read This Book. It takes place on a gigantic ship, and they have to like hunt monsters in these kind of cramped corridors and shit. And they discover the mechanisms of this gigantic nation of a ship. And I don't know, the Book of Ice just felt very similar to that, and I just felt like I'd seen it before, and so I just wasn't interested. And it was pretty disappointing. I still gave it 4 stars because there wasn't anything necessarily wrong with it, but it's just something I didn't love, and I expected to. Question 6 is, what is the biggest surprise? And that is easy. That is the book that I just finished, or the second last book that I just finished, and that is Nomon by Nick Harkaway. This book, it just really defies explanation. It's previously I had thought that maybe like the Masquerade series by Tess Dickinson was the smartest series I'd ever read, but I don't know. Books and series can be smart in a lot of different ways, like Malazan, Vita Nostra, The Fifth Season, Masquerade. But Nick Harkaway's book is just really something else. Basically, oh my god, I don't even know how to describe this. Basically, it takes place in a near future England, London specifically, and people have exchanged willingly their privacy in exchange for convenience and safety. And so all of England is run by this system called the Witness, and it sees absolutely everything you do, and it is just incredibly convenient. You don't even have to ask for things in order for the Witness to already know and provide them for you before you've even thought to ask. But there is this kind of rebel writer named Diana Hunter, and she's paranoid about the system. She doesn't like it. Like, she's built her home into a Faraday cage, for example. And she's taken in by the Witness for questioning, or for interrogation rather, which isn't painful at all. They just bore tiny holes into your skull and read all of your thoughts and secrets. So is it painful? No. But is it a rape? Absolutely. And nobody has ever beaten the machine before, really. Nobody has ever died before while going through this process either, but Diana Hunter ends up being the first woman to do both. And so an inspector of the witness named Milky Neath is tasked with figuring out what happened. And in order to do that, she downloads all of Diana Hunter's memories from the interrogation and then starts reliving them in her head when she goes to sleep. So, meanwhile, in real life, she's investigating the case. And then we also get very large chapters, like very large chapters, over 100 pages, where she has gone to sleep, and then we get to relive some of Diana Hunter's memories. Except, here's the caveat, Diana Hunter's memories aren't memories of her own life. We get the memories of a man named Konstantin Kyriakos. He is a Greek banker who has a kind of spiritual experience with a shark. We get an Ethiopian artist named Bekele who fled Ethiopia, now lives in London, and is tasked with designing a kind of postmodern weird video game. We get Athenius, who is a Carthaginian alchemist, and she is kidnapped and brought to this place called the Chamber of Isis to resurrect someone who was killed mysteriously. And then we get Nomon, who I'm not even going to begin to describe. And then we get some of Diana Hunter's actual memories as well. It's just such a weird book. I really can't even tell you anything about it other than it's absolutely brilliant. Its tone is acerbic and really, really delightful. Like, it actually made me laugh out loud multiple times with just how like wry and sarcastic and done with your shit the tone of the book is. And it just really, really says a lot about security, terrorism, interrogation, society in general, so much more that I'm not even really touching the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, it was just a huge surprise, and Nick Harkaway is definitely on my radar now. I want to read more by him because it was a fantastic book. That also answers question 7, who is one of your new favorite authors, Nick Harkaway. And then another answer that I have is from much earlier in the year, and that is Will White. Will White writes something so totally different. His books aren't really saying anything for the most part. They're just really, really, really fun books. And I feel like they're great for fans of like any kind of action shonen-y type anime. I feel like if you like that kind of thing, you would absolutely love his books, specifically the Cradle series. That's the one that I started with, and then after that I moved on to his Elder Empire series, which is more of a kind of high adult fantasy that takes place in an interesting world that's a little bit later in its development than your typical medieval fantasy, but it also has kind of like Lovecraftian gods called elders that are wreaking havoc on the world now that the Emperor, who has kept them at bay for the last 2,000 years, is dead. And the Elder Empire series is also fantastic. I haven't read his first trilogy, but I am planning to pick it up. So he is another author that I really like. Question 8 is newest fictional crush. I don't really get crushes on like book characters, really. I don't know, I guess maybe Fitz from like Keeper of the Lost City. Ugh, never mind, he's 16. I reread the 6 books in the Pushio's Legacy series, and so I guess Imriel de la Cosel, I guess. Dark hair, blue eyes. Question 9 is your newest favorite character, and that is actually a very easy one as well. This just popped into my head. But I read a sci-fi series last month, I think, called the Donovan series. It takes place on the first Earth-like planet that has been colonized by us, and it's very, very far away, and the colony has been there for something like 40 or 50 years, something like that. But the method of transportation that these ships use to get to Donovan has been failing, and ships haven't been showing up. And so the colony has been on its own for, I think, like 10 years or so at this point, and things are really, really starting to fail. But then all of a sudden, a ship appears and it just kind of throws things into chaos with the new members that it brings. Now, the first book was definitely good, but the second, third, and fourth book just like really, really take things up a notch. And so my favorite character by far in the entire series is Kylie. Kylie is this little girl. I think she was like 11 or 12, maybe 13. I don't know. No, I think she was 11 when we first meet her. And on this world, everything in Donovan tries to kill you. It's really inhospitable. People can definitely live there, but you can get heavy metal poisoning from eating the plants. All of the wildlife is trying to kill you. But there are these kind of reptile raptor type dinosaur kind of creatures that are called Quetzal. And the Quetzal just seem like kind of regular animals. Well, I mean, they're aliens. But they seem just kind of like a regular predator, like a lion or something like that. But turns out they're actually super, super intelligent. And so the character we meet, Kylie, was actually bonded with a Quetzal, which before this point, Quetzals had only ever killed people. But the Quetzals are immortal in a sense. 3 of them combine to create a new Quetzal, and all of the parents' information that they have learned from their life is passed down into its offspring in an unbroken chain going back for generations. So every Quetzal knows everything of all 3 parents' descendants. And so they're functionally immortal because they pass down their consciousness to the next generation. Anyway, they are super intelligent and they've decided they want to run an experiment by bonding a Quetzal with Kylie. And Kylie, because of that, is just, I don't know, she's quite the character. She's really, really incredibly smart for her age. She's sick of everyone's bullshit. She's tired, exhausted, and just world weary for an 11-year-old. She swears like a trucker, and her pedophile joke just really got me the entire series, really. Her mother told her stories of kind of boogeymen that came from Earth called pedophiles. And, oh no, probably not good with the Shane Dawson drama going on right now. But, I don't know, she just kind of she just called everyone she didn't like a pedophile, and it really took them aback throughout the whole series. And that had me laughing at that as well. So I really, really like her. She's a fantastic character. Question 10 is, what is a book that made you cry? That has to be The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. The author is a Spanish Catalan author who lived in Barcelona, and he died at the age of 55 from cancer, I think just 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. And so because of that, I decided to reread the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series. I finished the 4th and final book in that quartet right around New Year's, and I absolutely loved it. Book 4 is my favorite in the series, and then after book 4, I read book 2 and 3 because you don't have to read them in order. And then I decided to reread book 1 just last week, and it made me cry. It's just such a wistful, romantic, tragic story in the first place, but then pair that with the fact that the author just passed away, it was really sad. So I cried there, and also at the very beginning of the year, it was the first book I read in 2020, I believe, River of Stars by Guy Gavriel Kay. All of his books just make you really teary-eyed and weepy, but they're the most gorgeous, most beautifully written books you'll ever read. So I would highly recommend that. Either of those, honestly. I have a whole video about a guide to Guy Gavriel Kay and why you need to read him, so you can check out that video if you wanted. I'll link it up in the cards. Question 11 is a book that made me happy. Basically, any of the ones I mentioned that made me laugh, really. Kylie from the Donovan series by Michael W. Gear. No One by Nick Harkaway. Oh my god, actually, the monster or the tyrant Brew Cormorant. I cannot spoil this for you, but there is a part where Brew is caught having sex in the woods by some people who who really shouldn't have seen her having sex, and the way that they respond when they catch her is the funniest thing in the world. Like, I was actually cackling. I couldn't stop laughing at that because just imagine if I said that to you. If you read the book, you know what I mean. But yeah, that was good. So that's a book that made me happy. Question 12 is, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year? And that probably has to be the 10,000 Doors of January. It's just a really pretty cover. I really like florals, and I don't know. There's just something about this cover that really, really drew me in, and I hadn't been hearing good things about the book, and so I just happened to see it when I was at the pharmacy like a week or two ago, and so I picked it up, but I have yet to read it. And the last question, question 13, is what are some books that you need to read by the end of the year? And honestly, there aren't really any specifically that I have that have already like been on my past TBR, but basically any of the anticipated books that I mentioned earlier. Primarily the next Malazan book from Esselmont. I'm super excited for The Black Song that comes out later this month, I believe, because I love Balin Alsorna. It's the fifth book in the Raven's Shadow trilogy, or the second book in the second trilogy, I guess, is what I mean. And then Rhythm of War. Rhythm of War is one of my most anticipated books of the year. I am super stoked to read that, and so those are my answers. Anyway, I am glad to finally have filmed a video since it's been like 2, 3, 4 months. I don't even know. I wish I had some excuses, but I really don't. But be sure to look out for more videos from me because I have actually filmed a bunch within the last few months. I just haven't gotten around to editing them. So they are going to be very dated videos, but I am still going to post them because I have a review of the Tyrant Brew Cormorant coming out since I love the book so much. I'm also going to review No Mon that I just read the other day. So yeah, be sure to look out for those, and I'd appreciate it if you liked or shared the video, and be sure to subscribe.